All right, we're going to call the regularly scheduled town council meeting to order. We are going to incorporate the invocation of Pledge of Allegiance that was done immediately previous to this meeting. So we will start with the roll call for this meeting.
Mayor Foley?
Here.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Here.
Councilmember Atwater?
Here.
Councilmember Smith? Here. Let the record show Councilmember Altieri is not present.
Thank you. Item 2 is the agenda, reordering deletions or emergency additions. I have an emergency addition that I will get to unless anybody else on council has an item they'd like to add. Okay, so...
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
as far as the addition to it, I understand that there would be no action taken on this item, so.
There will be no action taken by council. I cannot guarantee what the members of the public are going to do.
Understood.
Okay.
Procedurally, that's appropriate then.
Right, all right,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you. So the emergency addition is going to be, under the mayor's report, we've invited representatives of Republic to come and hear not just my comments, which I made in an email sent to Republic earlier this week, but from the public regarding, let's be charitable and say the deplorable treatment of the town and its residents by Republic in connection with what should have been a very simple matter and which was in good faith negotiated between the town and Republic as we make some transitions. So I would ask for a motion to include that under the mayor's report. My understanding is that the representative from Republic is coming from Broward County. She's not here yet. Hopefully, by the time we get to the mayor's report, the representative from Republic will be here, and I want that representative to hear the comments from the public and not just mine. So we will give you an opportunity to comment at that time. Can I have a motion to approve adding a Republic report and comment from the public under the mayor's report?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have unanimous consent on that. All right, having finished with item number 2, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to presentations and proclamations. We have one today, and it's a very interesting one for all of you that are here, and it's called the Flood Ordinance Update. So this is where we learn from an expert in flood prevention and remediation.
Thank you. My name is Denise Boning, and I am working here as your CRS coordinator. I am an associate in the National Flood Insurance Program, and I'm also a certified floodplain manager. And I would like to talk today about the potential updates on the flood ordinance. Oh, there we go. And in the interest of time, and rather than going through the long-winded explanation of the NFIP and CRS, which I'm sure you've heard plenty of times from me, I'm going to just summarize it really quickly. The town of Indian River Shores participates in the National Flood Insurance Program, which is a voluntary program. As such, we abide by following certain minimum standards, and as in return for following these minimum standards, we are able to obtain disaster assistance. Flood insurance is made available to the residents of the community, and the community becomes a little bit more resilient. Town of Indian River Shores also participates in what is called the community rating system, which is a higher standard in comparison to the NFIP. Just quickly, as a comparison, what is a minimum standard versus what is a higher standard? Under the NFIP, a minimum standard is you are required to adopt and enforce flood maps. You are required to adopt and enforce a flood ordinance. And all new homes and new construction and substantial improvement properties must be elevated above the base flood elevation. What the base flood elevation is, I will explain a little further down. A higher standard, which some communities implement, is new homes, new construction, and substantial improvement are elevated to a base flood elevation plus 2 feet. Some communities do 3 feet. Some of them even go as high as 4 feet. Other communities have tracking cumulative substantial improvement. Indian River County, for example, tracks cumulative substantial improvement over a 10-year period. Other communities, such as ours, do not allow manufactured homes to be built in a special flood hazard area. Those are higher standards. This is just a sample of them. Why do we want higher standards? We want higher standards. It makes more importantly, a community far more resilient against storms or any other possible flood events or any other events that could happen. Currently, our community, the town of Indian River Shores, is a Class 6 community. That means as a Class 6 community, every resident obtains a 20% discount on their flood insurance, which translates about to $0.35 million annually. Now, no, that number is not as accurate anymore because since Risk Rating 2.0 came out, that is a new methodology of rating flood insurance, they're missing numbers in there. So actually, once FEMA updates the numbers, that number will be higher. It is the goal for the town of Indian River Shores to become a Class 5 community, which would translate into a 25% discount on all flood insurance policies, plus about $4.42 million in annual savings. And more importantly, it makes our community more resilient. So let's briefly go into the flood maps. We have new flood maps that just recently came out in January. So I have here the 2012 flood maps, 2023 flood maps. 2012 flood maps, if you look on the left, all the gray area, those are Zone X areas, which is an area that is considered as moderate to low risk of flooding. All the ones in green over there is what they call an AE zone, which is a moderate to high risk area of flooding. Then here, the beach side, you have what they call a VE zone, which are properties that are at a high risk of flooding because they're also associated with an additional risk of storm surge. So now we have new maps, and if you look at the new maps, the brown and the darker colors is Zone X, and again, green and on the ocean side are the special flood hazard areas. Now, what goes into a flood map? When a flood map is created, FEMA takes historical data, flood data, storm data. It analyzes the information of that data and puts it into a flood map. The 2012 data, I like to compare it to a fire hose out of control because they did not have the methodology and the tools at that time to be as accurate as they are. So as you see here, a fire hose that's out of control, it may put out the fire, but it's not very efficient. So in the meantime, we go back to 2023. By now, we have much better topography. We have much better historical data. We have much better modeling. So our analysis, our depiction of the flood maps is far more accurate. Keep in mind, though, that a flood map only depicts one risk, and that is the risk of the 1% chance of equaling or exceeding that level of flood, of the base flood at any given year. It can happen twice a year, it can happen once in 10 years, it can happen who knows when, we don't know. That is the only risk that is ever depicted on a flood map. It does not provide you the risk of possible storm surge, sea level rise. It does not provide you any risk of if a community is hit with a Cat 2, 3, or 4 hurricane. So we always have to keep in mind that a flood map only depicts one risk. So base flood elevation, as I said, is the 1% chance of equaling or exceeding that level in any given year. So you see on the flood maps, there is little numbers on the bottom which says like 6, 7. That is the base flood elevation that is given on the flood map. So what does that mean for the town of Indian River Shores? Let's assume this is a new home that was just built 3 months ago. Brand new home. And they look at the map. Here you have your water source, could be the beach, it could be the lagoon sign, doesn't matter. According to the map, that red line, the red dotted line right here is your base flood elevation. And the map says it's 6 feet. According to our ordinance, we have to build BFE +1. So our finished floor of that new construction has to be at 7 feet for this example, because the base flood is 6 feet. We have to build at 7 feet. Now, we had this ordinance in place way, way before CRS even became a thing. In the meantime, the Florida Building Code has adopted that same regulation. So also according to Florida Building Code, any new construction and substantial improvement has to be built at BFE +1. So for this example, 7 feet. So now we fast forward to 2023 and our new maps came out. Well, something changed. All of a sudden, this base flood elevation right here was lowered by 1 foot. So this used to be the base flood elevation on the old maps at 6 feet. Now on the new maps, they lowered it by 1 foot. So we're not going to lower the house, obviously, because the house, the finished floor, is still built at 7 feet. So we said, well, look at that. Every single new construction in this town is in compliance with the BFE +1 from the old maps, which was at that time 7 feet, and that's where the houses are built. But our base flood elevation has lowered by 1 foot. So why not change the ordinance and make it an ordinance that we should build at BFE +2, because all new construction is already there. So there's really it's a wash. There is nothing, no burden on the residents in that sense. So that is my proposal. And the reason we do that, or I suggested it, is A, that it's a wash, and really for community resiliency. The town of Indian River Shores has always been the premier community in Indian River County that looked ahead of what possibly could happen and how we can mitigate any potential risks, whether it's flood risk, hurricane risk, and things like that. We want to be ready. I'm sure, I don't know if any of you have seen during Hurricane Michael, this house was all over the paper because right here you have the Gulf right in front of it. This was the only house, because it was built really above higher standards, that is still standing. I'm not saying this is going to happen to the town, by no means, but this is where we want to be. We want to be that house that if in the event a Cat 3 or Cat 4 hurricane hits, our houses are still standing. We are not dealing with debris removal for months and months on end and trying to get back into our house and wondering, well, my generator is not going to work because it's elevated on a path that's below the base flood elevation, so it's not going to be useful for me after a hurricane hits and we don't have power. That's all I got. Are there any questions?
Any questions from council? Mr. Elwater, you recognize.
So you say that the BFE dropped from 6 feet to 5 feet?
Yes, that was just an example. In most areas, it dropped by 1 foot. Yes, here in the town.
Right, okay, I guess I'm trying to figure that out, because if you pull your maps back up, you show that the special flood hazard area zones have actually increased in the town. So I'm having trouble understanding how both of those things could occur. If anything, you would have think that the BFE went up rather than down.
Absolutely, and that's a very good question, because that's exactly what happened. In most areas, in most communities, the BFE did go up. For some reason or another in our community, and I'm going back to the methodologies used for the 2012 maps. They were based on analysis from the 70s, which is really antiquated. So now they have better methodologies, and they said this is more accurate if the base flood goes down 1 foot. But in terms of the area where the special flood hazard area is, that hasn't changed. It's still the same. It just looks that way probably because the image of the map that I used.
Council, I sent a series of questions to the presenter through the town manager. I asked her about the CRSs around here. As we know, the Indian River Shores is 6, Vero is a 7. And just for the audience, the higher the number, the lower the discount you get. You want to have a low number. City of Sebastian 6, Fellsmere is 8, and Indian River County is 5.
Yes.
So, first of all, do I understand correctly that if I'm in Zone X, my discount maxes out at 10%, correct?
Well, it's changed because it used to be that anybody who was in a Zone X, they would get through the flood insurance what they call a preferred risk policy. So a CRS discount was already included. Now, with the new flood insurance rating, with risk rating 2.0, the methodology has changed where flood maps are no longer used at all. Insurance agents go by a proprietary FEMA method they did where they calculate the distance to the source, to the flooding source. So regardless whether you're in a Zone X or a Zone AE, the agent will determine the distance to the flooding source and rate your policy on that way. So once they do that, then they'll take the CRS into discount. Now, if, for example, I'll use myself. I have a Zone X policy. My policy over the last, years was about $500 a year. Now that they measured the distance to the flooding source and I live near a canal, my flood insurance is going to go up every single year until it's truly risk rated the way they would risk rate it if it were a brand new policy. And once it's truly risk rated, that's when I see the total 25% discount on my flood insurance.
Okay, so then, in the past, the town has done things to try to lower the CRS. So if I'm understanding you correctly, even if we lower our CRS and spend town resources to do it, I, as a homeowner or residents here, don't get any advantage through that work, correct? If they're using a proprietary method.
No, you would, because you are getting your CRS discount, absolutely.
Well, I thought you just said the CRS discount doesn't come into play.
It does for the zone, it does now, it never used to. It does now under risk rating 2.0, it comes into play, but the thing is it's on a gliding scale if you're in a Zone X. Because it used to be no discount, $400 because you were already preferred risk. Now what they do is they got rid of the preferred risk policy. So a $500 policy that was in Zone X is now going to be on a gliding scale. And as it goes up, the preferred risk discount per se is starting to go away, but your CRS discount is going to come in.
All right. Just one last question or comment, Mr. Mayor, is, so I asked what specific steps would the town as residents have to take to improve our Class 6 CRS rating to a Class 5 rating? And the presenter had 4 items. I don't know if you want to talk about them briefly, but I would suggest that we really look hard at this. As all of us know in this room, we're getting killed on insurance, whether it's flood, homeowners, you name it. So, I think we need to look at this pretty hard. But I don't know if you want to just talk about those steps. So.
Well, the only thing I have to say, I agree with you. Flood insurance, homeowners insurance is insane, and I get exactly the same questions for all communities that implement the CRS system program. And ultimately, it comes down to, it really doesn't, flood insurance, it is what it is. You can buy it or you don't buy it. That's up to you. But it comes down to community resiliency. Because ultimately, if you are not in a CRS program and you maintain your minimum standards, what happens during a storm? How resilient or how fast do you want to bounce back? Do you want to sit here with blue tarps on your roof for months on end? Or do you want to sit here and not get the disaster assistance because you didn't participate in the program and now you have to do it yourself? That's ultimately what it comes down to, is because we're trying to build a more resilient community that can bounce back better after a storm. Case in point, most of you have been or are from up north. You know about Superstorm Sandy. Superstorm Sandy, same thing. On the flood maps, you saw a lot brown areas, which was the Zone X areas. The storm hits. Well, Sandy wasn't informed that it can't go beyond those lines. JFK Airport was totally flooded. Long Island was totally underwater. Now, since then, they have been really built to be more resilient in case such a storm or something like that, a lesser storm would hit.
I just have one comment. Oh, I'm sorry. You've mentioned the insurance companies several times. Did they have anything to do with these new ratings?
No, the
it's
flood
not-
insurance rating, that is strictly FEMA.
Okay.
Yeah, that is all the same everywhere. They have their thing. You
They don't
can't,
have any influence.
no, no.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Carroll.
Two questions.
Sure.
First is, in reference to Councilman Allwater's comment, to go from 6 to 5 or even lower. You alluded to 3 or 4 things that we should consider doing. Would you tell us what they are?
Sure.
And second, are you familiar with any other communities in Florida, East Coast or West Coast, that are rated besides the city of Vero Beach, Vero Beach is 7.
Yes, sir.
That are rated below 6?
Yes, obviously Indian River County is 5, Martin County is a class 5. On the west coast, we have Pinellas County. Pinellas County is a class 3. And they were just recently hit, as you all know, with the most recent hurricane. We have, let's see, City of Fort Pierce is a class 5.
Why are they a 5 and we're a 6?
That I can't tell you. I can find out, but I can't tell you because I don't have their information of what specific CRS activities they do. It could be a number of things. It could be their ordinance, stricter or higher standards that they have in their ordinance that I don't know.
So would you illuminate us about the steps we could potentially take?
Sure. One of them is a BFE +2, implementing that because, as I said, that's a wash. It really doesn't hurt the residents, and that would give you about an extra 100 points. I should mention that we are short, in order to become a class 5, about 300 points, and you need 500 points in order to jump to a next class. So I would recommend that. Then the other thing is improve our outreach projects, doing more outreach projects. We were doing very well before COVID, and then during COVID, with not having really been revving up for it, it kind of fell apart. So that is something that we'd have to start back up and doing more outreach projects. And I have some suggestions, such as having letters going out to either all the residents. Flood Awareness Week is coming up in March, is always daily, doing some outreach projects there. Another one would be doing more targeted outreach, such as addressing only the condominiums, beachside, or the homes on the lagoon side, things like that. And then maybe improving the webpage a little bit. Otherwise, we have other activities that need to be tightened up that we started 3 years ago. such as our stormwater management plan. There's some changes, some tightening up, some reports that we need in order to submit it to FEMA for rating, and that's a huge point. Coastal A zones, we are, per our flood ordinance, we're regulating coastal A zones. That has never been submitted before. That would be the first time we would submit that for credit. Right there is about 250 points. So between those two things, we're pretty darn close to a class 5.
So it sounds like a majority, if not all, of the points you just made are administrative
Yes.
sort of initiatives.
Yes.
And it seems to me that we should undertake those initiatives as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Well, yeah, before you may, I'm having a deja vu moment here because several months ago, I think we talked about the low-hanging fruit that we could implement, such as the community outreach program to start accumulating these points. So I believe we set forth a soft deadline to give us a cost-benefit analysis. These things don't cost the town or its taxpayers anything really to do, anything significant. So I'll ask you to speak to that, and then I think we should set now a hard deadline, pick something reasonable, 45, 60 days, to come back to council with a specific recommendation for us to approve on this. While I'm on a roll, before I turn it over to you, I want to make an observation. Sometimes you get these things in the mail that say good news. Because of the remapping, you no longer are required by your mortgage holder to have flood insurance. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have it. That just means you're not required to have it by the mortgager. So you'll be pretty much naked on your coverage, for lack of a better word, if you don't renew it. So they're not requiring you to do it. The mortgager is not requiring you to have it, may not escrow it, but I would suggest people take a look at this on their own and go out and have a look at it just as your neighbor and not your mayor.
And on that note, lenders don't require it right now, but anybody who's insured with Citizens and has a mortgage is now required to purchase flood insurance. Otherwise, they will not get a homeowner's insurance with Citizens. And I have a funky feeling that lenders and other homeowners insurance companies are going to follow suit. So,
thank you. The other item I wanted to point out is later on in this meeting, we'll be getting to a grant that the town has received to explore resiliency.
That gives you a lot of points.
Yeah, and so, I was going to ask you, if we successfully complete, at no cost to the town, except for your federal tax dollars, from which the money came, what impact will that have on our accumulation of points to improve our rating?
That could definitely, I think that alone will push you to a class 5 for sure, because that gives you a lot of points.
All right.
That could potentially even give you to a class 4, but that's a long shot and I wouldn't recommend it. Class 4, because the thing is, once you step up a class, you also have to maintain it. So I've had communities that could have gone to a class 4 and they said, no, we're going to wait a year. So I think one class at a time is good.
All right, thank you. And then finally, just an observation that some of the potentially more controversial methods that could be implemented to improve the rating actually do come at a cost to taxpayers. So if we were to really beef up building codes, renovation codes, that increases costs to people to build homes, to undertake renovations. Personally, I'm reluctant to do that without a cost-benefit analysis being done in terms of the likelihood of there being a real return on that if we're going to charge our taxpayers that. So it's an observation, not a question. With that, you may, Mr. Hartman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things. Subsequent to the last presentation we had overall about CRS, I met with Ms. Boning on a number of occasions, and we're prepared administratively to move forward with those items. We were waiting for this meeting to have this presentation. So on the administrative piece, we're basically ready to jump off on that. The only direction I would seek from council is we are prepared to present for first reading at the March meeting a ordinance addressing the BFE plus 2 as recommended and as we discussed. If the council so directs, we'll present that at the March meeting for a first reading. We'll have that on the agenda.
Yep, I think we're all in agreement that that should be on the agenda. Thank you very much.
We'll take care of that, sir. That's what I have.
Terrific. All right, an awful lot to digest, always very informative. Thank you so
you.
much for your presentation. It's not on the agenda, but anybody from the public want to make a comment about this topic? No? Okay. Thank you, we're done with that. We are now going to move to comments from the public regarding agenda items. At this point, show of hands, how many people are here to talk about Republic? Okay, here's the good news. You're going to get your opportunity to speak on that issue, but you're going to have to hold your comments for a little while longer because we're going to do that under the mayor's report. Does anybody have a comment on any of the other agenda items other than Republic? Anything else other than agenda? All right, we're good. Is Ms. Stanley here from Republic?
She is. I saw her come in. She may have just stepped right outside, Chief. If perhaps you could just step outside and...
Well, that's okay. We can do the consent. While we're doing that, we're done with comments from the public regarding agenda items except for Republic. We are now on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. All right, the mayor's report. I have two items. Item one is, obviously we had a tragic accident in our town this past week. And while I will defer to the chief at the time of the public safety report on the appropriate details of that, mine is a thanks to the public safety department. These are tragedies that happen, and the only comfort that I got out of it was seeing the professionalism and the, quite frankly, amazing response that the public safety department gave to attention to the matter, including, I understand, Chief, you went to visit the gentleman, his wife passed away in the accident personally, and that is something that I don't know many departments would have. So my personal thanks to you and to the involved people on the scene, including Mr. Harpering, who also was involved in that. So thank you. I know you can't comment on many details. Naturally, there's an active investigation still going on, but when it comes time for the public safety department report, you can feel free to supplement. We are now at the point where we're going to talk about Republic. So I presume Ms. Stanley is here. Hi, Ms. Stanley. At the outset, I'm sure you're not going to hear a lot of compliments. So I don't have a compliment for you either, but I do have an understanding. And the reason why I thought it'd be important for you to be here, in addition to the email I sent you and the communications we've had regarding this debacle of a process, was so that it enables you to go back to your more senior management and let them know just how upset not just the mayor and council and administration is, but the public as well. Particularly with a renewal coming up in government time in a very short period of time, which is usually measured in years, not months or weeks. So for the benefit of everyone in the room, as it was once said by somebody, I feel your pain. When we thought we had this process to switch out trash cans all down, I made a phone call to the number which I understood was supposed to be a dedicated line to make my selection to a medium-sized can instead of the ginormous one that took up half my garage. The gentleman on the other end of the phone hadn't a clue what I was talking about. Subsequent to that, I did speak with Ms. Stanley, and I appreciate the fact that you were doing your best to try to make it a bad situation. Hopefully, my comments enabled you to go up the line and take care of this. We then had another round of discussions to try to resolve this, which we thought we had. Parsing through all the emails, the week that we were supposed to put out the trash can to have it replaced, I got my new one, but now I had three. because they didn't take the gigantic one away. I left it out all week thinking maybe they need to come and pick it up. They filled up the truck with all the other ones, left a nice Post-it note on it, to no avail. We then went through another round of this, where the resolution is now put it out on Friday and put it out with your old can, and that will be picked up, and we've got this all resolved. That's the table being set for what should have been a fairly simple process, turning into, as I said, a debacle. As for the billing, I don't even know where to begin with that.
$475.
Yeah, I'm going to let you folks speak to that, just so, and again, we're not doing this to beat up on Ms. Stanley, we're doing this so that we give her the information to take it back to those desks in corporate that, potentially can resolve this. So the billing, amazing. It almost reminds me of the situation where the fellow burned down City Hall because he got a $25,000 water bill and nobody would listen to him. So I'm not inciting anybody to do that. That's why we're here talking about this today. So the purpose of this is twofold, and I have a question and an observation, at least at this point, which is I think we all need to be very carefully watching how the town and its citizens are treated going forward before we even consider whether it's part of a group, such as the county, participating or recommending that Republic Services is or continues to be our vendor on this. It's not 3 strikes, you're out. I just don't have any confidence anymore that when we have our administrators spending valuable time that's paid for by the taxpayers to resolve these problems and come to resolutions in good faith, that there's any prospect of them being fulfilled. That's a real corporate problem. It's a corporate branding problem. It's a corporate image problem. I could go on and on and on, but it's a major problem that needs to be given its due attention. And then lastly, I think that there needs to be an explanation. I would ask you for an explanation when people are done with the comments, or part of your addressing those comments, that goes along the following lines. We've been told and understand, not just by you, but by other vendors, we've had discussions with and looked at, that, there's a transition going on in the industry. It's going from people-based to technology-based. So not as many people are going to be involved. There's going to be one guy in a truck with an arm that picks the trash can up, dumps it in, as opposed to 3 guys walking up your driveway. It's going to that kind of a system. I would like to know, what assurances we have going forward that transition has any prospect of providing better services to the town and its residents than what we've seen, over this past 2 weeks, when something this simple got this messed up. A fairly substantial transition to a different base system has grave concerns on my part. At this point, I'm going to get off the soapbox, and I'm going to ask if there are any other comments by council before we open it up to the public.
I'll just say one thing. Prior to all this, I thought Republic Services leases, the service to me was great. Stuff got picked up, moved along, and so forth. I guess my question, maybe you can address it, is when it comes to the billing, I won't repeat all the comments about the transfer. I mean, I had a lot of people in my community upset that were worried that, I got to pay this $444.81 bill, otherwise, they're going to come after me. But maybe just, where the hell was the quality control on this? I mean, you didn't run a batch of bills to see. I mean, I don't have to have a doctorate in applied mathematics to say quantity 1 times $132.13 equals 1 penny. I mean, things of that nature. So, I hope going forward you can address that from a quality control perspective. Other than that, I won't say.
Right. And we stand ready, willing, and able. Mr. Harpring, me, anybody, we can't do it, with multiple people due to the Sunshine Law, but we stand ready, willing, and able to talk to any representative of the Republic, your superiors that, that would like to hear from the horse's mouth. You think we get it bad, I see Mr. Corpars here, I can only imagine what he's going through at Johns Island. With that, I'm going to ask members of the public to come up and tell us your stories. If you don't like speaking in public, many of you don't, but you want to register a complaint, you can say "me too," or you can say whatever you want. So as you approach the podium, if you so desire, please state your name, your address, and your comments. And I would ask you to limit them to 3 minutes because we have that as a guideline. Sir.
I'll make this quick. Paul Bloom, 231 Amy Ann Lane, Emerald Cove, right down the street. Just some questions for the billing. I assume that we'll get a credit on our next bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And what do we do with our old garbage can that can't be recycled?
You put it out on your service day, your next service day, and people will receive it. But they're not that's all 5 months. Not the next day, your next service day.
Okay, ma'am, let's have only the podium address. You can come on up and make your comments.
Would
But
it help to put a note on it, trash?
Mr. Mayor, can I suggest
Yes.
any of the responses?
Yeah,
Because
she will have
it's
the-
being filmed.
absolutely, we'll have the responses when Ms. Stanley comes up. So just please make your comments, ask the questions. She'll write them down and she'll answer them
Okay.
when she comes up. Thank you.
And then finally, there are some people who in our development who just ignored the message. Maybe they're the lucky ones. How do they transfer? What's the process for notifying them? Are you not going to pick up their garbage in the old can? How does that work? And then finally, I'd like to thank the township for their service on this. You've been very helpful.
Thank you. Next comment, ma'am, you wanted to say something, so please come on up.
Lexi Howard, 341 Sable Palm Lane. My bill stands at $475 current, and I've called several times. I do not understand how the company is not capable of going into these accounts and taking that off, because now my account is saying past due. And I really don't think that's fair to me or my credit rating to have a past due account for funds that clearly your company has said you don't owe. That's the first one. The second one is we have called multiple times and asked to have our cans picked up. And we're told, leave them out the next day, that you have your regular garbage, they'll switch it out. No, not at all. Still sits out there. Third, now that we cannot have these guys come up to our garages, average age in here is about 70 plus. Sorry if you're younger than that. You're asking a very old generation to pull those heavy things down to the road. We have people who are 95, 90 years old, still living at home, and they can't get their cans out. And I just don't think, I think everybody is willing to pay a little bit more to have the old service. And I think that a company with as many people as you're serving in Indian River County can certainly make an exception to that rule and have your guys pick it up. Because it's a danger to our community and to our citizens.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
And Mr. Mayor, just for the benefit of the audience, for the town council, these are public comments to the town council, so.
Yes, understood.
Please remind that.
Well, I know, but,
Understood.
you know, they're aware that there's a representative Republic here, so as long as they're able to be heard,
Yes, sir.
I'm okay with it.
Mike Corpart, General Manager, Johns Island. These are more general comments based on my phone calls never stopping or emails. Number one, the biggest thing, and I think you touched on it, is they need a better customer service phone number. People call, they get told, I'm in South Carolina, I want to do the card exchange. Oh, you want to do a card exchange? No problem, but it's only going to be $175 additional per year to get that card exchange. They've been asked about the handicap forms, because I've been told by Republic that if a person gets a note from their doctor that they are not physically able to move this cart, they will continue the backdoor service. They call, once again, the company has no clue. A card exchange, again, is a debacle. The other complaint I have is currently they are not using an automated truck to pick up the new cans. They're still doing it physically to the back of the truck. Well, even the older residents are putting the can out on the side of their driveway. They come home, the can's laying on its side in the middle of the driveway. They have to get out of their car, move the can to get back in their driveway. So these are the major ones, and obviously the billing errors, but that's all I have from my majority of complaints I've received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know the brevity of your remarks does not equal the amount of complaints that you're getting, so we on council understand that here. Yes, yes, sir.
My name is Bob Gibb. I'm at 157 Island Creek. Also, I'm part of Johns Island Real Estate Company. We have had tremendous complaints from our clients about the values of what real estate is being affected by these ugly trash cans sitting out on the corners. That service that we had before, being able to be picked up at the garage, is I feel very much of a must to come back to. We got clients that was driving down the street. They're seeing these cans out, and we're asked to put them out by 7 o'clock in the morning. It might not be picked up till 4 or 5. That's just intolerable. That just is a problem, and it will continue to be for many of our senior citizens that was discussed before. They cannot get the cans down to the street level. I think we've got to get back to being able to have the trash, we put them outside our garage, and they can be picked up. Please have that reestablished, because it's really affecting our community very broadly.
Thank you, sir.
Joe Rodenbaugh, 220 Shady Oak Lane. I just want to add to that comment, because I agree 100% with it. But we have 67 golf cottages along Silver Moss and Shady Oak, and we don't have garages. There's nothing to hide our can behind. There's nothing to put it in. And so we've gone from this service where we had a beautiful neighborhood where you hardly ever saw a piece of trash or a trash can, to now, 3 days a week, seeing between 67 and 130 trash cans on about a half mile of road. It's just not acceptable.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Ted Elliott, 383 Silver Moss, and I have a series of questions. Has there ever been a competitive bidding process for the business? Next, what is the relationship of Republic with CCSI, which is the condominium service that provides service to us? And why has the cost of trash collection for our little community of 67 homes increased from $11,952 in 2016 to an estimated $31,143 in 2023, despite almost a complete collapse of service in our house? It's easier for me to pick up my bags and put them in the trunk of my car and take them over to the county dump than to put them in a blue bag. I mean, this morning I had a bag about this size, and I put it in a big container about this size. Haul it back over this way, and then over this way, and then across my lawn, up to the road, where it's gonna stay for perhaps 2 days, at least 1 day. To me, this is not acceptable. And I feel as if I've been treated by a dictator as to what I have to do with my own garbage. So to me, it's just not acceptable.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Patty Jo Flug. I'm a resident of 351 Silver Moss. This is not whining behavior, but for those of us who are either widowed or live alone. It is almost impossible for me to get those. I requested a small garbage can, which I can do. The recycling, because I've been very proactive in keeping it in an enclosed area, to get it out of that enclosed area, to get it out to the road over grass, which we have to do, we don't have garages, is almost impossible. Secondly, I do not have a physical disability that I would feel it would be dishonest to get a note from a doctor saying that I couldn't do it. I'm caught, I'm strapped. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Someone over here, yes, sir?
I'm Dave Christakis from 966 Sunrise Terrace. And my suggestion is that we look toward efficiency. 3 days a week is inefficient. My kid's house down A1A a little bit, they're in Vero and they pick everything up in 1 day. Our costs have gone up. I don't want to see my costs go up because they add an additional service that I don't want to come inside my gated area where my trash cans are to get my trash cans and take them out. I think that if somebody needs that, that should be an optional service that they pay for individually. I don't want to pay for it for the entire community. I wouldn't use it. So if we were to combine the trash pickup on 1 day, as they do just 2 miles down the road, I think we might get better costs. I've been told by Republic that the billing that we got that is ridiculous is a mistake and that it'll be taken off. And I've got a lot of history with Republic. I had an account with them in California, and I will tell you, their billing department was absolutely the worst in all of the disposal companies I worked with, and there was a lot of them. I probably had 4 different disposal company accounts. I did fire repair, and so I was always ordering dumpsters and having them delivered. They do a pretty good job for us here. They pick our stuff up. I have lots of oak trees that nobody wants cut down, and I don't want to cut them down, and I have a lot of leaves, and sometimes I'll have 5 cans of green waste out with my big trash can. A big trash can's too big for me, but it's not a problem to move because it's got wheels on it. But I would like to see us ask them to focus on efficiency and cost control. And if we could lower our bill by doing it 1 day a week, I think that's something to be investigated. And you guys do a great job in there.
Thanks, we appreciate that. We do have a contract renewal coming up in how many years, 2 years?
The start date would be October 2025. We are involved in procurement at this time.
So we will definitely take your comments to heart. It's not the first time we've seen them. Is there anyone else that wants to make a comment? Let me expedite this. How many people have had problems with billing? Raise your hand.
What was the question?
How many people have problems with billing? Raise your hand. How many people have had problems with service? You can raise your hand twice. Okay, so nearly everyone here. Yes, ma'am, you have a
My name
specific
is Sharon
comment?
Scott, and I live at 220 Park Shore Circle. I'm also on the board in our community, and I want to request that we are able to get small recycling pails for our community, because our garages are very small, and as others have said, it's very difficult to deal with the, really large pails, so we would like to request that. I also want to mention that I'm not too impressed with corporate of Republic. I wrote to the Senior Vice President of Southeast and copied in the Chief Operating Officer. And my understanding is that, after my letter, some action happened, but I have never even received the courtesy of a response from senior management in Arizona. So that's very disappointing that, a company such as this, and at that level, don't even, return or answer a letter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Yes, ma'am.
Morning. My name is Patty Patton. I live at 891 Rainbow Lane. We live on a very, very small cul-de-sac. And yesterday we watched the Republic truck come by, pick up our garbage with the arm, and run over all of the lawn in the middle of of the island because we live in such a small cul-de-sac. Previously, the guys always came and left the truck on the main road, came and picked up the few bags of garbage that there were, and trundled it off. And I think this is probably an opportunity for them to streamline, but they're forgetting about all the little incidents that happen because of the streamlining. And I guess there's probably nothing that can be done, but we're people too. So I think maybe some of these problems could be solved by a little bit more people contact with Republic.
Thank you. There's always something that can be done. You just need the right people to do it. So, all right. Ma'am, you've already had your opportunity. We limited. All right. So, Ms. Stanley, if you can kindly come up and before, as she's making her way up, understand there's not going to be any back and forth by members of the public. It's her opportunity to respond. I just want to take care of some general observations as I've heard it. We've heard some wide-ranging complaints and requests for service. So in the current marketplace, I think residents are going to have to keep in mind that things that the town can do really have to take into account the specific needs of the town as a whole. Some requests by specific communities and homeowners associations, such as in-ground service, what we call a concierge service, or they call a concierge service in the industry, going up to the back of your garage. There's a question of availability of those services. Many of the vendors are not providing them anymore. So on some of those very specific services, you may have to be looking to your homeowners associations in the future to take care of that for you, with the exception of qualified medical excuses and things like that. So just an observation that you can't really look at this as, you know, what's happening only on my street. The town has to negotiate a contract that really takes into account the town as a whole. So there may be some specific things that your homeowners associations can do that the town cannot do. With that, I'm going to ask you, just for the sake of structuring this, to address the billing issues first, and then we can deal with what we'll refer to as the service issues. Thank you for coming here.
Sure.
As I said, this is not to beat up Joanne.
Right.
This is to give you the ammunition to go back and deal with your corporate folks. And as I said, we're all willing to do whatever it takes to take time out of our schedules to meet with the appropriate people.
Okay.
As you heard from this lady over here, not even the courtesy of a response from someone in senior management, that's quite shocking to me.
It is, it is. Well, first and foremost, I can't apologize enough for all that has happened. I mean, this has never ever happened to me in my 30 years in the industry, so understand that. I mean, I can't make this stuff up even if I tried on how bad it was, and I can really apologize, and I'll start with the billing. Yeah, we actually, as a corporation, as like most people know, we have new programs and new stuff so we switched from our regular, our regular billing process to a billing process called Oracle. And so we're in the process of doing that. It's a new programming for that. We went to Oracle, and obviously there was a big glitch on this, and that's what happened with the billing. And so we thought we had it right when we did the billing properly, and then all of a sudden they took it ×3 because currently you do the billing on a quarterly basis. What I didn't know, even after 50 years of servicing here, is that we thought everyone was individually billed. But we found out as we're going through this process that some of the homeowners associations bill, and then some of the other ones get billed individually. So when you call the CRC and they don't have an address for you, they can't give you the information because it goes to so I'm working through that piece of we have a tool that they can use to talk to. So understand that has been a process that, because we've had this service for so many years, we've never really gone through that. We will be doing what we call a desktop audit to make sure that everything is properly done, and we'll have the right tools for each of the homeowners associations along with that. Huh?
Why wasn't this done?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't recognize that, so it was more of just the billing. We've been billing and have not had any issues for many years on the billing, so that's why I didn't understand why this is happening, because actually didn't know. I wasn't here when they started the contract, but we're working through that, and I know this is very frustrating. You know, you will be credited, do not pay your bill, and it didn't go to a credit bureau, so it should have nothing to do with your at all. It just shouldn't reflect that at all. And the new bills are coming out on the 26th, and you'll see the big credit for it and what it is. And I have been assured that that is going to be the correct bill, and it will be billed for that quarterly basis again. So hopefully, you know, I mean, not hopefully, I've been assured it is, but, yep.
That's all well and good, but do we have a dedicated billing representative of Republic that the town administrative offices can work through so that?
Absolutely.
Okay, and who is that person?
Her name is Jackie Harris,
Okay,
and she's
so-
been working with them, and she's shaking her head because Janice has spoken to her. And first and foremost, I have to tell you, Lucy and Janice and Mr. Harper, I mean, they have been really working with us, and we apologize to them. They have been fielding a lot of the
We should
calls.
also apologize to the taxpayers.
And
because
we want
the
to apologize
taxpayers
to you
who
too.
Are really, you know, not supposed to be paying the salaries of their town employees to be covering up Republic mistakes.
Yeah, we're an adjunct to your customer service.
Yes.
And that's just not.
And
gonna happen.
Joanne, this has just been going on, I mean, I feel like you coming here today, it's not gonna do any good. I mean, you haven't done anything that you can do so far. I mean, they didn't pick up our recycling yesterday at Johns Island. I'm getting phone calls about my overdue notice. I mean, these are like simple things that you so far have not been able to take care of. And I don't have much hope for your organization. I mean, you're a huge company.
Yes, we are.
You're a huge company. You do this for a living. It's just inexcusable.
Yes, ma'am.
So, sorry to interrupt, but.
That's okay.
So we have a dedicated person.
Yes.
This is what we're gonna try.
Yeah, we're not going to give it out to all the residents. They can, you know, call the line, but the dedicated for that she does.
Why not? Why
Well,
don't
because
you have
she's-
no, let me finish, please. Why don't you have a dedicated person for this town? Because I get these complaints from my residents and constituents that they call up and nobody knows what the hell is going on when we call the regular numbers. So you know, we appreciate you come here, you recognize you have a problem. Put a tiger team from your customer service of 3 or 4 people that understand every nuance of this and not just have a chat bot up there and be able to discuss it reasonably with people. Why not do that? Why is it just
I
not
couldn't
for
agree
Janice?
more. Why are we acting as the customer service department for Republic?
Well, you shouldn't be doing, they still should be calling because we can't determine services that you require unless they call the customer service center so he gets into our system. So I want to introduce you first of all. So this is Scott Moore, and he's our new operations manager. Through this all, we had a senior management change here locally. So right through the middle of this, like I said, this is like a perfect storm. You can't even make this stuff up if you tried. But that is what happened. So he is now taken over, and he is our new operations manager, and will be the one dealing directly with the city on any service issues coming forward and so forth until we get this straightened out. And I think he's a week into this.
Okay.
So just want to let you know on that. But I understand what you're saying. When you call the customer service, any kind of services, we want to make sure that we keep track of what, if they call and say, I want an extra pickup. I can't do that unless they put it in the system so that we know that it's there so we can route the truck.
We're not talking about extra pickups.
Yeah.
We're talking about the basic services that are being missed. We're talking about people having billing discrepancies occurring time and again. We're not talking about extra services. We're not talking about, can you do this for us? We're talking about complying with the basic fundamental strictures of the contract.
Okay.
And we have town employees that are spending taxpayer dollars to do this job for you. It's not going to continue, I can guarantee you that.
Right. Well, what I can do is give you
So
my...
going forward, after this meeting, I want you to get to Mr. Harpering, and we are going to have a dedicated person from Republic that our town people can call when they have an issue regarding billing, starting with billing first. You may not have the same person in operations. Let your phone light up like a Christmas tree instead of the town's.
Right. And
Is that agreed to?
that's agreed to. And I spoke with Johns Island they have my cell number now too, so they have been giving that out to the residents, just a lot for clarifications and stuff like that. So the town has my cell number. I think you all do. I can give that to you now, and people can call me directly until we get this straightened out either way.
Okay.
You know, but I will get that in
Again, I
place
don't want
for
to
you.
debate this all day. We have other
I
matters
get
to
it.
attend to. But
I understand.
if we're calling you,
Mm-hmm.
there's something wrong.
Right. But, you know, at this point,
I don't need to tell you that.
you're right. At this point, I need to get this fixed. And like I said,
Understood.
yeah. So, a couple of things I want to address too with that. Like I said, the town staff, the removal of the carts is you have to put the cart at the curb if you're a customer-owned cart, like your old cart, because we're not going to run around and look in the back and in-ground carts. I would suggest this is really a safety thing. For those that have in-ground carts, I suggest that you find a way to cover it up, and because it's a safety issue, if someone would fall in it or walk in it, if you decide you want to remove the can and the top, it's a safety issue. So we're not going to be going back there anymore. So just for for your edification on that. But if you put the stuff to the curb, we will pick it up. I know there's some areas in Johns Island that they've been picking it up, and we'll be retrieving those. But as far as I know, it should be, if you're putting them out on your service day, they will get picked up. And then Friday is the day that when you have all of the 95-gallon carts that you didn't want and you got your smaller carts, we'll do that. And I just want to say at the beginning of this contract, when we negotiated this extension, everyone was to receive a 95-gallon cart because we want to make sure you all had the capacity that you needed for your services twice a week. And then, you didn't like the size of the carts. So, I mean, we had ordered only 95 gallons to start that. That's why we kind of stepped back. And then that's why February 1st was actually, February 20th was the startup
We
because.
understand all the prior history.
Yeah.
But then we worked through that, through
Right,
all
we're
the
working,
states.
yes.
And we had agreement after agreement.
Right.
That you put your card out, it's going to get picked up.
Mhm.
We can belabor this all day.
I got
But
you.
We're where we are.
Mhm.
And there's no question Republic made an agreement with our town administration that you put your cards out on a particular day, they will be swapped out for the card of your choice.
Mhm.
And that's been blundered badly.
Okay, okay.
So we're now on to service issues. I think we've resolved how we're going to try to deal with the billing issue.
Okay, so the cart
what
retrieval.
about, how do you explain the missed pickups? Because my neighborhood has missed recycling pickups twice in 3 months. One was done the next day. It sounds like Councilmember Smith's was missed.
Everyone on my street, and as I drove out. So that's a lot of people that did not get the recycling picked up yesterday.
So are we able to have a dedicated operational, is it you? Or we're going to be calling you?
Yeah.
Lucky you. By the way, welcome to Cincinnati.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you here.
Good morning. Like she said, my name is Scott Moran. I'm the new operations manager here for your city and for the area. I do apologize deeply to the residents and to you all for the issues that you've been having with my company. I'm ashamed, to tell you the truth, about the issues and the service or the lack of service that you have been receiving. I've been with the company for almost 10 years. And this is not the type of service that I like to provide to our customers, and you all are our customers. So deeply, from the bottom of my heart, I'm very sorry for the issues that you guys have been having. And I am here to fix it. As far as everything that you have brought to our attention and additional, comments to our CRC and directly to Joanne and myself and other members of our company, we are taking that into consideration, and I'm making sure that we actually fix those issues going forward. So I will be out there on the streets. I'll make sure that our drivers are doing the right thing. Your carts are going to get picked up, the ones that have been sitting around for several weeks instead of being swapped out for a smaller size. I'll make sure that we get this straightened out. But as far as the service, like I said, there's no excuse for what you guys have been receiving from Republic Services.
I appreciate that. Acknowledging fault is the first step towards correction. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that. Just operationally, the latest I was told was that tomorrow you put out your old cart and the swap out cart, and it's supposed to be picked up tomorrow. Is that still the plan?
Yes, sir. So I put in place to where Friday we would go ahead and pick up all the carts that were supposed to get picked up when you swapped out to a smaller container. So the ones that they were not picking up, the 95, 96 gallon containers, Those are all going to get picked up tomorrow. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So,
I have extra resources, extra trucks. We're going to go out there and collect those for you.
great, thank you. And, you know, in that regard, you know, that's good news because we've been putting out communications to our public in reliance on the things that Republic has told us that sometimes happen, sometimes don't. And another enormous concern of mine, and I'm sure it's shared by council, is our credibility when we make statements to the public based upon what Republic has told us in good faith. So, two things to summarize here before I think Vice Mayor Carroll has a comment. Number one, on the billing, we have a dedicated person who's going to be given contact point, and Mr. Harpering will communicate that to our residents. You are going to be the operations individuals, so to the extent that people have an operational issue, under the current terms of the contract, they're going to contact you directly. And I will tell you this, you know, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make this right. And as I said 4 times now, if you need us to talk to people further up the food chain to let them know just how serious we are, and I can guarantee you that the town of Indian River Shores has influence far beyond the size of its population. People know how we're run and they listen to us. If we're not happy with Republic, they better understand that our word's going to be taken very seriously by other municipalities in the Treasure Coast and in Florida. Secondly, what am I prepared to do if this doesn't work out? I'm recommending to council, and there's no action item today, but I'm recommending to council that we have our town attorney look at our breach of contract remedies, and that will include the town going out. First of all, we shouldn't have to pay under a contract that we're not being properly serviced under. I know we have a penalty and a chargeback provision. That's not getting anybody's attention at Republic. So, you know, I'm going to ask our town attorney to take a look at what it takes. Maybe if you're not getting paid, maybe get somebody's attention up the line. Bean counters do tend to take notice when their debits and credits are not balancing. And secondly, to the extent that the town can even do it, you know, if we have town personnel that are doing what should be Republic's job, I'd like us to keep track of the hours and then charge that back against the Republic contracts, so the taxpayers don't have to pay for being the customer service department of Republic. And to the extent our public work guys have to, you know, pick up stuff that's a public hazard, we shouldn't have to be paying for that either. So if there's any disagreement among council with my recommendations, please, I'm open to hear it.
Totally concur.
All right, thank you. All right, Vice Mayor Carroll.
In the spirit of Ms. Boning's comments, in my opinion, this has been the equivalent of a Cat 4, Cat 5.
Understood.
Would you please come forward and look at this photo? Tell council and the audience what the photo is.
For service, basically.
Just describe it.
There is trash on the ground and a container off to the side. But they left a lot of trash on the ground.
I took this photo, I live at 91 Calvary Lane. I took this photo this morning. We put our recycle material out on Wednesday. And Republic came by Wednesday, picked up ours. They picked up my across the street neighbor's contents from the blue can, but they left a half a dozen pieces of liner board just lying in the driveway. Do you have an explanation as to why they would have done that?
Well, the contents weren't in the cart from what you explained. The truck is going out there and picking up cart content. I'm not sure if that's a part of the contract is just cart content, or are they supposed to get out and actually fill it back up?
But yeah, but this was
That
it is
is
cart
absolutely
contact, it's
I don't care what your, I don't care what your policy is.
Yeah,
It is absolutely absurd that a customer can put out pieces of linerboard boxes next to the cart that are not, they can't fit in the cart, and Republic cannot pick them up. That's absurd.
I completely agree with you. The driver should have got out, and that communication piece I will be taking back to the team and letting them know that this is unacceptable. That even though if the contract says it's only cart content only, I want to make sure you guys are cleaned up. I want to make sure that we do you guys right to make sure that the community is cleaned up. I'm not accepting what they did out there. I'm just trying to explain and answer the question. But this is not acceptable as far as a service level on my part. This is not how I operate. I understand your concerns, and I would appreciate the opportunity to give me the time to fix this for you so you can see exactly what Republic Services should be as far as a service provider to you and your community.
Thank you. And, following on Vice Mayor Carroll's analogy there, I feel like you're the guy who just moved to town and the first thing you got hit with was a Cat 4 or a Cat 5.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to work with you within the confines of the contract, but I think the message has been received as I close out this discussion. And Ms. Stanley, I'd like to have a conversation with you next week so you can fill me in on who at senior management you've talked to and what their reception is, and if we need to talk to them further. Happy to do that.
Absolutely.
All right? Thank you.
I will absolutely, make sure that you have someone from our senior management team or our area team reach out to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're closing this discussion, but quickly, Mike.
I just don't, is there going to be another cart exchange day? Because I still have a number of residents that call and say they've got nowhere with the request for a cart exchange. Tomorrow is not going to happen for them. Right. So is there going to be another day designated for a change in the next few weeks? I would communicate that to you and everybody.
Thank you. You can handle that, privately, all right?
Absolutely. I'm going to answer this gentleman's question. For those people who have not responded on carts and stuff like that, they need to call that number that was given before to call, and we will do a second cart exchange. Not everybody responded, to the city, and so that's why the rear loader's still out there, because we know that some people just, have not asked for the carts, or they missed it, or they were not home.
Nobody answers it.
Huh?
Nobody answers the phone.
But is there,
People call and then nobody answers the phone.
but there should be a voicemail that they can leave their name and number
Oh,
to
yeah,
get a call back. So to get a call back, they're on the line, but yes, we can do that. And the city has my phone number, they can call me, and I can also make that happen if I need to. Whatever we need to do to make this right, we're gonna do this and make this right, just know that. And so, like I said, we can't apologize enough for what's going on, but we will make this right, and just bear with us, and we're gonna do a second rollout. We'll get with the town to coordinate that, so to make sure that everybody's going to be notified when that second rollout is going to be. And I'm also in the process, just so you know, of talking with the county on trying to figure out how to get smaller recycle containers. The recycling containers are not owned by us. They're owned by the county because it's a county-wide program. And so I'm trying to work with the Machu in the county to figure out how we can pick up some additional containers that are not the 64s and 35s. I don't have any 35s that they could give us, but we're looking to do that or find a way to purchase them so to be able to offer that. So understand we're working through that piece. I know there's some areas that are looking to do that. And so, there are things that we're doing that you don't think that we're doing in the background, but we're working through all that. Because like I said, at the end of the contract, those carts revert back to the county. Those are county carts. The garbage carts are our carts. So that's sort of kind of how the program works.
All right, we're going to move on. Message received. Thank you, sir. We look forward to working with you, and hopefully we move on in a better manner than this. I guess I have...
Do you think they'll pick up my recycling?
I don't know. I wish I could tell you I had a good feeling after this meeting, but, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Please try hard. Look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you. All right. Moving on to council member items. After all that, anything from the council?
Just really briefly, since this has come up, I went to a meeting that EPDOT had at the Environmental Learning Center, where they laid out their plans for the Wabasso Bridge that's come up about in terms of the fencing along that, and to make it safer for bikes, and it's going to be aesthetically a lot more pleasing, and the mayor of Orchid is comfortable with it. So, a step in the right direction. That should be done by late summer.
Great. Yeah, Mayor Gibbons and Town Manager Stowe and Town Manager Harpring and I were involved in this ages back, and pleasantly surprised that FDOT, in this instance, I think, went beyond the call really to find budget money to do it, because it was quite costly compared to what the original project was.
I was involved in this like a couple years back, and they actually went and found a structure from California that Caltrans uses. So
Yes.
they stepped up, so I give them credit.
Great. Item 8, discussion with possible or probable action. Item 8A is ordinance number 556, property rights elements for comprehensive plan. This is the first reading of the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Mr. Town
An
Attorney.
ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Indian River Shores, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan by adding a new property rights element, providing for applicability and severability, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Any discussion from council? Is there a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 556?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mayor Foley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Let the record show the motion passed unanimously.
Item 8B, ordinance number 557, the cemetery rate charges. This is the first reading of the ordinance. Are there any discussion among, I'm sorry, Mr. Town Attorney, please read the title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance relating to Johns Island Cemetery, clarifying various provisions of Chapter 93 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Indian River Shores relating to restrictions on sale of cemetery lots. Thank you, sir.
Is there any discussion? No discussion, there being none.
Motion to approve. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Foley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Let the record show the motion passed unanimously.
Thanks so much. Item 8C, budget meeting dates. So we have our budget meeting dates required by state statute. We have some, I hope I don't bungle this too badly, some that have to be done at like 5:01, is that right? And we need a quorum for those dates, so this item deals with making sure council are available on the dates selected for the budget meeting.
They're typically the same locations they are every year, right?
They are. I don't, just as an added note, there is is this the date that's supposed to be in September? The budget meeting dates?
Tuesday the 20th.
Yeah.
But we've changed the regular meeting from the Thursday to the Tuesday. So it's been on the 28th, it's moving to the 26th.
Right. I don't know that we've formally changed the date, but at my request, we were going to change it from the 28th to the 26th.
Yes, sir.
And we probably need to do that more formally as an agenda item, right?
Well, it's on here.
It's fine to do it.
All right, we've already done it, already. You realize that?
Yes, sir. On those, and just to point out, council, at the bottom of page 89 of the packet under 8C, the meeting dates, those are the ones that we recommend for, a public workshop, first regular and then second hearing. The only change historically would have been moving that meeting. So just note that there is that one Tuesday, September 26th, which would be the regular town council meeting. And that would be appropriate calendar-wise relative to the
26th?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. My question, just to clarify, was that if we approve this, then we don't need to go back and formally approve the change to the regular council meeting date to the 26th.
Mr. Mayor, council, I don't believe so. I believe that this is implicit within that because it was designated in conjunction with it.
Okay, all right.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on this? Do they work for everyone?
Yeah.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Foley,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll,
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Let the
Okay.
record show unanimous.
Thank you. Staff updates, building official report and statistics.
Mr. Mayor, I'm standing in for Mr. Martinez today. He had a previously scheduled medical appointment. There's just a very brief reflection on the report that you've already had. If you have additional questions, just please let me know and we'll follow up with them. New construction and numbers and additions, alterations, everything seems fairly steady right now. While inspections were down, there appears to be a little increasing month to month, and plan reviews are similar. Miscellaneous permits and fees collected remain pretty steady. So if there's any additional questions, just please let me know, and I'll get Mr. Martinez to provide that information for you.
Any questions from council? All right, moving right along here. Item B, the town treasurer report.
You've received my report for the month. If you have any questions regarding that, I will do my best to answer them. Otherwise, just as an update, I have just finalized the financial statements. I have town management reviewing it right now and should be sent to the auditors early next week. We will have a finance committee meeting early March. We haven't set that date yet, and then it'll be presented hopefully at next council meeting for your approval for the 9/30/2022 financial statements. I really don't have anything else to report at this point.
Just a quick comment, Mr. Mayor. On page 95, I just want to say to Heather, thanks for keeping on top of minimizing the amount of money in Center State Bank at that whopping 47 basis point interest rate that they're paying us. They're really stepping up for us, but keep shelling the money out of there. Again, the Fed is only going to raise rates more. They'll soon see that SBA account above 5%.
I keep my eye on it. Thank you.
Anything else for our town treasurer?
Oh, I have apologies. I will be bringing a resolution next month to raise building permit fees. I'm pretty confident we will need to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
While you're doing that, it's always good also to have an explanation. Mr. Altieri's not here today. I remember coming on council and not fully understanding why we're limited in terms of, what we can do and what we can spend with that, so.
I will provide, I will have that money.
Terrific, thank you. Item C, public safety. Chief Rozelle.
Morning. We'll start off with the unfortunate fatal accident that we had down the road. It was extremely sad. It was a woman on her way back from the post office, on her way back to her home in Del Mar, and she didn't make it across the street. You were correct. There are some things that I can't talk about in a public setting, but individually, if you'd like to reach out to me, I can give you a much more detailed update, because there is much more information to it if you'd like to feel the need to hear it. I did visit the widower the following day, because I knew he'd have questions based on what had occurred there, and he did have a lot of questions. I sent Sergeant Smith over there yesterday to visit him again to make sure that he was okay, and he is. He's got his 2 sons coming down, I believe. They arrived today, and he's going to go back up north to Cape Cod for a little bit to try to decompress and make sense of all of this. Again, it's an unfortunate event. And it's also unfortunate that we would have to report this to the DOT for our purposes of getting the crosswalk down the road, but you're nodding your head in concurrence. We did, and we are going to get that crosswalk in, and it's going to be the way that we want it to be, to make it safer for all the residents down there. And I'm not saying that this would have stopped the incident from happening. I'm just saying that it is what it is. On another note, the direction of the town manager, we sent somebody to monitor the traffic light just outside of town at, what is the name of that?
BMR.
It's BMR. And we came up with statistics, which I provided to the town manager, which he provided to the county, and it basically confirmed what we thought, that the light is working in a manner that they have determined what the sequence should be. Our contention was never that it's just going on and off at will, it's sequenced improperly. So I followed up with a conversation with somebody in the county and stipulated that yes, your traffic light is working the way you set it, it's just not set properly. And part of the proof that we had is that most of the traffic moves probably for about a minute along the green light on A1A before it turns, and it turns because somebody comes up from Bahia Mar and triggers the light. There were a couple of instances where nobody triggered the light for 2 or 3 minutes, and during those instances, traffic completely emptied out of Indian River Shores. There was none. It went from traffic all the way from this light to no traffic. But then the next sequence, it started to build up over the next 5 minutes or so to where it was backed up again. That was not coming across. I don't know why that was not understood, but in conversation with the town manager, we have a plan to try to move forward with that, to get that fact understood. Again, we're not contending that there's anything wrong with the light. It's working the way they programmed it. And my contention is that they just programmed, it needs to be adjusted a little bit.
Well, Chief, when there's a movement out of Bahia Mar to the east to get on A1A, is the light only triggered green to go east when there's somebody there, or can there be a situation where there's nobody there and the system just says, well, north-south movement's gone on for 3 minutes now, we have to allow?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not only triggered by someone pulling up from Bahia Mar, it's triggered by somebody going to the left turn lane. So there was one sequence there, I think it was close to 5 minutes, where there was no, the light was just green on A1A. And you can imagine that there was no traffic buildup in the town whatsoever.
Okay, I don't think I asked my question the right way. Is there ever a situation where the light coming out of Bahia Mar turns green when there's no vehicle there?
I don't believe that it does. Well, we were sitting there.
Okay.
Yeah. And majority, what we found is the majority of the cars coming out of Bahia Mar that trigger that light are making a right turn on red. And so they're coming up, looking both ways. The light turns red, they're making a right turn on red anyway. So the traffic is being held up for no reason whatsoever. It's a sequencing issue. Sequencing is working the way they said it. They just did not, it's not set to the advantage of people exiting Indian River Shores.
So what's going to happen when they put in the light at 7-Eleven and CVS?
I don't believe that it's a light, well, okay, they could be putting a light in there. Did we make any progress on that?
A traffic light seems unlikely based on the feedback, but an on-demand crosswalk similar to the one that's in front of Christ by the Sea Church on A1A as you pass the park, where it's on demand, and those are frequent and not unusual on long stretches of A1A throughout Florida, a lot of other places, but specifically on A1A.
20 to 30 second time.
Absolutely. You come up, you hit, it's on demand, the lights go off, traffic's supposed to stop, the person crosses, and it's not a very long duration. I mean, obviously long enough for a pedestrian to get across, but much more efficient for pedestrian or bicycles crossing A1A ultimately than a light would be. And speaking with the chief and deputy chief about location, one of the things that we wouldn't be adverse to would be a location for this somewhat proximate to the beach access by Surf's Edge, and then you extend the sidewalk that's already there in front of CVS and Oak Point just to meet that. And that could be the other, and it's not very far from Fred Turk right here, so that could be the other crossing point that would be safe for pedestrians.
And to answer your question, I don't believe that it's going to impact the traffic that bad. There is pedestrian traffic, that's why we need it, but it's not people crossing constantly the way cars are coming out of the Mar.
You know, there's nothing we can do about people crossing like that poor woman. I mean,
when we see them,
it's further than they think, because you've got a shoulder, you've got a bike lane, you've got a traffic lane, you've got a turning lane, you've got a traffic lane, you've got a bike lane, and you've got another turning lane.
Yes, especially exactly where this fatal accident,
where it
you
happened.
just described exactly the way it happened. And again, if you'd like to contact me offline, I'd be more than happy to. Yeah, I can give you a little bit more insight on that, but I can tell you right now, just it's a matter of business during the day, any time during the day, once or twice, I'll see somebody crossing the road in there. I'll stop, put my overhead lights on, traffic will stop in both directions to facilitate them crossing. Is it jaywalking? Yes. Do we want to enforce that? No, but we've also educated the public, but we do facilitate the public going across at different points and different stages. Since this light went in, people are much more inclined to cross at this crosswalk than they were at crossing in the middle of the street. I can tell you that just from our observations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Any
And
questions?
again, amazing job done by your department.
Well, thank you, sir.
So greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
Anything else for the Chief? Next up, Public Works. Larry?
Good morning. So I bring good news. Our dune crossover is complete. Just wanted to give you guys a few brief photos of the job processes and everything that we went through. So here is me on the equipment digging out the proper depths for the poles to be set. So hopefully the next storm allows it to stay and not float away. Here's the process of the poles going in. They're actually jetting them in now, where we jetted them into the -3 depth that we required. Oops, sorry. Cross bracing on the bottom, backfilling in. So just to kind of give you a brief overview of the steps going in. Here's the finished product. Well, it doesn't look like that now because we have some sand restoration going on to the north end of the south of us, but I'm keeping a close eye on these guys that are doing sand restoration to make sure that they bring our dune back better than the way I left it. So, have any questions for you guys?
Any questions?
Just say thank you for your skill set in terms of being able to handle the equipment. I'm sure that saved us quite a few bucks as opposed to having an operator come in. So.
Yeah, I've spent many years running hydraulics, so.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I just want to, humility aside, our Public Works Director saves us thousands and thousands of dollars generally, but on this particular project specifically, because he gets the equipment, he operates it himself, plus he's on scene with the engineers and the contractors, and based on his experience, very, very valuable, saved us thousands of dollars in this operation alone. And it was a substantial piece.
No, I agree, and if we were allowed to talk among us without... I would...
Sorry.
There he is.
There I am, sorry.
I mentioned, to the town manager that, empowering you to do certain things has been, one of the really good achievements over the past year. I mean, I think you've taken your position and really turned it into something very productive and terrific for the town, so thank you. With that, probably, maybe Jim addresses this. I've only received, I say only, because you always get a lot of comments about the beach access, but only 2 comments were, are there going to be benches put in? There will be benches put in.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, there will be benches put in eventually.
So, people don't see the benches, they're like,
we were gunning for March 1 to get everything done, so that way we don't have to show a turtle season, and from there, I mean, I'm actually praying for March 1 so we can get some of this traffic slowed down, so. If anything else, we're...
Not for me, anything? No? Thank you very much. Code enforcement.
Jake is actually, our Code Enforcement Officer, Sergeant Mike Grant's actually out on something that came up that we're addressing, but you received the Code Enforcement report with the updates, and I think overall, with the Chief's Assistant, having this particular function moved to where it is has been very productive and getting me response 24/7. So I think we're in very good shape there. Though there are always challenges with code enforcement, but we're working through them.
Terrific. Anything on code
enforcement? Mr. Mayor, can I just go back one thing and ask the chief a question?
Sure.
So everybody can hear the answer. We had the issue with the shark fishing. Any updates on that?
Okay. This month, we had a complaint come in about the shark fishermen down there. And so I sent the patrol down there to check their licenses and their permits. Now, they're allowed to shark fish if they have the proper fishing license and the proper shark permit. And that's what we checked, is that type of credentialing. They had a kayak to paddle their baits way out, and that's part of anything you do for kayaking or for shark fishing. The one thing that we did not check, and I'm probably not gonna, is the whether or not they had bait or some type of chum in a closed container. There's a privacy issue there where I didn't feel comfortable just asking somebody to open up their container. I had no probable cause. I just certainly had a reasonable suspicion to be there, but no probable cause to open it up.
What time of the day was this?
It was during probably around maybe noon, 11 o'clock in the morning. It was early this time.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't, we had complaints from constituents that it was, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I've heard that, but
I'm saying recently.
Yes, I've heard that recently, but I don't recall any calls going out on at 2 o'clock in the morning.
All right, okay.
If there was, then nobody called us.
Because they can't park here.
Yeah, exactly. And then the first thing I did was check to see if anybody got any citations for parking, and nobody did. But then I followed it up when I went down there and I spoke to the fishermen, and they're just people down there. They went down there with their families, had little kids running around, and they were down there shark fishing. But I explained to them that they needed to make sure that they did not violate the law while they were down there. We weren't going to violate their rights, but they had to reciprocate by not violating the law. So we're on them. They have my business card with my cell phone number, and if they have any questions, this is the shark fishermen, that they're to call me right away before they do anything. And I implored them not to engage the residents in any type of conversation whatsoever, especially anything derogatory.
Okay.
So
thank you.
So then it's okay for anyone to go shark fishing on all of our public beaches where people swim. And, I mean, it's okay for people to just try to attract sharks.
If they have the proper permits, yes, but they're not permitted to bleed or blade or chum. Yeah, you know what chum. So they're not allowed to do any of that off the beaches.
But they can do it from the shore, so you could have family around.
They can fish from the shore,
swimming and
yes.
doing stuff, and you could have somebody in the middle of this whole little group attracting sharks to the shores.
Yes, that's correct.
And we cannot prohibit it by ordinance.
We can't, we'd have to change the ordinance.
Yes.
So it's preempted by state statute.
Generally speaking, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. I mean, we can explore more alternatives, and of course, legislation is always proposed at state level. I don't have to tell you or council.
You're getting used to Mr. Elwood and me up in Tallahassee.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
Maybe we can.
In-house lobbyists.
Maybe we can do that.
And ma'am, if I find them bleeding baits or chumming, they're going to get charged. I'll call FWC down and make sure we charge them with the right statutes. But up till now, we have not found them doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Right, and much like the short-term rental thing, we've, and I've looked at this myself, we've done the maximum we can do locally by ordinance to manage shark fishing, which is permissible by state statute, as best we can. And that's the chumming ordinance, that's clearly okay. But just to clarify, in your interactions, you can go up and you don't need reasonable suspicion or probable cause to ask a resident, are you aware of our local ordinance? If you have chum in that container, you're not permitted to chum in these things. It's a ordinance violation. So it sounds like you're doing that, and
Yes,
as long as that's being done, we're doing the best we can.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. Anything else? All right. We did code enforcement unless.
You have a hand raised.
Unless there's any questions on the report.
Right, that's for public comment at the end of the meeting. Thank you. Okay. Town attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. Just two quick updates. One is related to our appeal with our state reuse case. Of course, you may have seen it in the local newspaper that there will be a hearing, an oral argument on April 4th at the 4th District Court of Appeal in Palm Beach at 10:30 in the morning. That will be typically available to also watch live via their website, and I can provide that through Mr. Harpering for anybody that would like to watch that. But that will be 15 minutes for our side, 15 minutes for the other side in front of a panel of 3 judges from the 4th District Court of Appeal. That certainly won't likely render a decision that day, but that would be the last typical thing that would happen in an appellate brief. There could be a request for subsequent information. That's highly unlikely in this case, so I would expect once we hit April 4th, we're now on a clock, if you will, although there's no definite time frame. It wouldn't necessarily be a month, 2 months, or 3 months, but just be advised that once April 4th hits, then it's truly in the hands, typically, of the appellate court judges, and they would render, much like the U.S. Supreme Court does, they hear oral argument, and then they render it at some point in time.
So I plan to attend.
Yes, sir.
Other members of council can attend.
Yes.
Live if you want. So long as we drive in different cars.
Yes.
Mr. Elwood and I went to Tallahassee, we had to travel separately under the Sunshine Law, so.
Great job for the environment.
Yeah, I know. So the details of the hearing can be obtained from Mr. Sweeney if you want to attend in person, take a trip to Palm Beach. Personally, I think it's important we have personal representation there by at least one or two council people, so that, the court knows that we're interested in this.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. And again, I will coordinate with Mr. Harpering and our town clerk to make sure that the information is available to anybody that would like to either attend in person or see it. The other thing I would like to mention just very briefly is a case that also generated very recently at the beginning of the month from our jurisdiction in Jupiter, is a case that's making the rounds in the local government area. And the reason I bring it up now is because it has to do with passing of ordinances and the timing associated with it. I don't want to presuppose how this will play out, but this case known as Testa, just on the 8th of this month, the 4th District Court of Appeal, which same court we're going to be in front of, said that if an ordinance is going to be read, it has to be read twice under Florida statute. It has to be generally specifically identified for when it would be. And I bring that up because it's very important. I know we have issues that come up where we would defer a second reading to get more input from the community, constituents, or otherwise. It's not problematic in the sense that we just would need to re-advertise whenever that next timing would be. But I just want to be and make you aware that this is certainly something going on. The Florida League of Cities has been on the forefront of this because it is widespread throughout Florida in virtually every jurisdiction I'm aware of, that if something comes up because there are two readings and it requires more information for a second reading and it becomes postponed from a meeting to a second meeting, those are all suspect right now. So the quote that I have been told by several members is there are billions of dollars at issue here because ordinances all passed within the last 5 years arguably are suspect, and that would include bond hearings, awards for contracts at every level of local government. So from the largest municipalities, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, down to a municipality of our size. Again, I have no concern, and I spoke with our town clerk, our town manager, feel very confident, but I just want you to be aware that this is making its way not only on the legislative side, but it is expected to ask the Florida Supreme Court to review this.
Yeah, we're pretty efficient.
Yes, sir.
We generally don't continue.
I understand
that. And if we do, I went and looked, we noticed them publicly, so.
Yes, sir.
But it has retroactive application for 5 years.
Yes,
in
sir.
most cases, right?
Yes, sir. So the other statute says that ordinances in Florida typically cannot be challenged except for a very, very small argument based on lapses and waiver after 5 years. They're presumed to be correct. But from the date of it, yes, sir. I'm sorry.
So does the notice have to be in a public newspaper? Or
Yes, that is the argument. The argument is that although at an open meeting like this, if it were to have happened today and we said we are going to defer taking second reading until our next meeting, which everybody would know is publicly noticed, but not necessarily putting it in a newspaper of general circulation in that area for that next essentially rescheduled or postponed reading, that has happened many, many, many times. And because of that, those are suspect.
Now, remember, we had the state legislature passed a statute which allowed a county to set up a site where all the municipalities could do different notices. Would that be covered, would that type of notice be covered under that statute?
Arguably, yes, sir. Now, as far as I understand, in our county, Indian River County, that has not been approved yet.
Basically.
But the argument is that it's the public notice.
Somebody in the county attorney's office doesn't want to do it, but it's time maybe to bring it back up again.
But it is, you're correct, it is purely the public notice, and that the statute very specifically says date, time, and location in a newspaper of general circulation. Yes, sir. And the equivalent would be the website posting under the new statute. That's all I have unless there are any questions. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Harpering, Town Manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just a couple things I want to note administratively. We've decided to change the Planning, Zoning, and Variance Board meetings to 9:30. Historically, they've been at 2. We had some discussion at the last meeting. There was really no objective reason to have them at 2, and for scheduling and convenience for staff and otherwise, those will be held at 9:30 moving forward. The town was awarded a grant from Florida Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, for over $79,000, almost $80,000. It's going to allow us to conduct a vulnerability assessment and study for the town that Ms. Boney mentioned earlier will be a substantive part of increasing our CRS points as well. and it'll provide us with some excellent background relative to specific items, not just town infrastructure per se, but the town generally, and that will all be covered under that grant amount that we received. We're working through right now, and I had a meeting this week with coastal engineers regarding getting that started and getting that going. We have a couple of road projects that are out there pending, one in Pebble Bay and one in Beachcomber. And I will note that as to the Pebble Bay, engineering's done, the RFP went out. We had a pre-construction optional pre-bid meeting. We had a number of people here for that. So we're anxiously awaiting the close of the bid date for that. Questions will be responded to. We've received a few. So I'll respond to those questions, and that will be proceeding. Now, Beachcomber is a little behind that, only to the extent that we're finishing up the engineering. We're preparing the RFP. A couple things that we're planning for Beachcomber, just as a heads up. I've met with many of the residents down there regularly and frequently on a variety of issues, to include the shark fishing and other items. In fact, I met yesterday with one of the residents to talk about that, as well as the roadway as well. As part of that paving project, to assist the homeowners down at the very end of Beachcomber, within the town's right-of-way, we're going to put a T turnaround so that cars that do go down there, because it's a public road, can easier turn around. Right now, either you back straight up, or you back into someone's driveway, or pull into someone's driveway, or you do a 7-point turn to try to get out of there. So hopefully that will assist. And we also have contemplated some additional signage to encourage people to do their drop-off and any other items with a car on Fred Turcott or public parking. I did want to note that in my conversations yesterday with the individual who lives at the very end of Beachcomber, he did note that he has seen a demonstrable change in the evening issues with people out there because of the parking restriction signs that we've put up here. So we're hopefully going to continue to address those things and move forward with that paving project. Yes, ma'am.
Why would you encourage the people to do their drop-off of their things to take to the beach here versus down at the T?
Well, first, there's technically no stopping, standing, dropping when we look at the ordinance down there, notwithstanding the fact that it is dead end in public, and people do that. But the complaints that we've received from multiple homeowners that I've met with have to do with a couple of things. One, anytime there's any type of launch, people literally will drive down there and simply park their car or put it in someone's driveway and walk down to the beach. And when asked and approached, they simply say, well, I'm just, here to watch the launch. So what we want to do is not close the street or anything like that, keep it open and make turnarounds more amenable, but avoid those situations where people are parked down there, as the complaints go, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes at a time, bringing things down, coming back and forth. So it's a reflection of the constituents' concerns, while still balancing keeping it open as a public road. And going down there a lot, I will mention that it is used very frequently with pedestrian traffic, with a wide variety of people, not just proximate, to Beachcomber, but otherwise. But we're hoping it's going to trend in the right direction once we get that key down there and do some additional signage. To bring up the sore subject, but on garbage, sorry, we thought we were done. I did participate in a procurement meeting on the 30th with the county. It was the very first preliminary procurement meeting regarding the request for proposals that we will be putting out. So we just laid some groundwork for what may or may not be in there. Certainly we can do this on our own, but our goal is to be part of the county RFP for a larger, basically economy of scale relative to the costs and prices. Billing would certainly be a different contemplation, because if it was through the county contract, we'd be looking at an assessment as opposed to, individual billing. So that did occur, and a number of the things that discussed were options. And some of the things that we've been looking at that have been discussed before, such as minimizing the number of trips in here. Can we have solid waste and recycling on the same day? Can we have assurances that those pickups would be done within a certain time within that day, i.e. prior to 12, 1, 2, something like that. But again, very preliminary stages. And just to refresh everyone's recollection, we had sent out through the newsletter and through the website survey request information that we got responses back that we're working with.
Mr. Harping, is the county aware of I know some of the individuals are aware, because I had conversations with them, of the challenges we've had with Republic?
Very well, yes, sir. Yeah, very well.
I have more concerns about garbage than I thought I'd ever have, but, as we go into this negotiation process, if things don't improve, I'm not going to be terribly comfortable with us having, basically a one-option prospect here. So I hate to throw another brick on the load, but, I'm getting a little sick and tired of hearing, we have corporate disruption within Republic, and, they're looking at a 7 to 10 year contract, is my understanding, so we have to bear that in mind.
Yes, sir. And
give ourselves ample lead time to look at alternatives, if there are any out there. And I know that one of the gentlemen said, and Councilman Alwater said, listen, up until recently, we've been, pretty good in terms of the quality of services we've had. But if this new norm is going to be the standard going forward, it's going to be unacceptable. It's my personal opinion, and I just think, I'd like us to calendar a date to give us ample lead time to start looking at other potentials if we don't see an improvement in service.
And we do have a contingent potentially for putting out our own RFP in advance to the counties, which again is not set until October 2025. And just as a very brief note, I just agree with and could amplify all the comments that we heard about Republic, and I'm not comfortable with lip service from them, and it's starting to feel that way. It has felt that way, to be candid. And when we get to the point as a town to reflect on your comments, Mr. Mayor, and others, relative to the expenditure of town resources to the point where one of Larry's employees, Max, and one of my employees, Lucy, literally get into a truck and go exchange people's garbage cans because they want to do the right thing by the citizens becomes completely unacceptable. That being said, we are very conscious of all those things and have a contingency as we move through this year to determine what options we want are going to be acceptable within the county's larger RFP, or will we be compelled, as it were, to go it alone?
Well, I think you heard, and Mr. Sweeney, you heard loud and clear from council that, if this continues, we certainly want to know what our options are to not just have like little net bites of, charging back, 1 day's service because they picked it up the next day as opposed to a Wednesday, which quite frankly is not that severe a penalty, for someone like Republic, but given the substantial nature of the breaches, what really are our options in terms of withholding payment, overall, because I think all of us in business know that's how you get someone's attention. Anyway, enough said on that. Thank you.
Okay. Moving along, just want a brief follow-up. First, I want to thank Councilmember Smith for her advocacy on behalf of the town at the Beach and Shores meetings. We do know, and this has come up again, and we continue to work through this. Back in February of 2021, the county had submitted a request for critical erosion designation in Sector 4. It was declined by FDEP. We don't think, based on review, that the county did anything that they shouldn't have done in terms of pushing forward that recommendation. As of right now, we have made a request through the county that we are involved in regarding the review, and it is a candidate for reevaluation and will be reevaluated for critical erosion designation by DEP. The county did provide all of the information that they have, and now our next step is to determine basically a time frame on when DEP is going to advise of this. It's important more prospectively than it is in the immediate. And by the immediate, I mean in the next few months. It's much more important more prospectively so that Sector 4, which is the majority of the town of Indian River Shores, is included in any large-scale county dune replenishment where we were excluded before. So that's where we are on that. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any other questions anyone may have.
Any questions for Mr. Harpring? I have one, the memorandum of understanding with the town of Orchid on long-term beach replenishment.
Yes, sir. That is going to be reviewed by, waiting for the final draft, but that's going to be reviewed by Orchid at their meeting. I believe it's March 1st, but I'd have to check the calendar.
Okay, so we're waiting for them.
Yeah, we're waiting for them
And
to
I was
return
told
that
not
back.
replenishment, but preventative measures so that we don't have to replenish, so.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything else from Mr. Harpring? All right. Committee reports. Let's start with Mr. Elwater.
None.
Vice Mayor Carroll? None. I have one. This is a first in government committees, at least in my experience. The Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities voted to reduce the number of meetings it has as opposed to increase the number of meetings it has. So whoever the alternate is, there's a new schedule. It will be 6 meetings a year. I think 3 of those will be lunch meetings. The thought was this was just getting too routine, not enough substance. So we're going to look at that. The matters of substance was a HB 37, which looks like it's gaining momentum. Unfortunately for us, if it passes, we will have to file much more detailed financial reports as opposed to the summary reports where we're accustomed to filing them. So we will have to provide more detail about assets, investments, sources of income. Just alerting everyone for their edification.
So how much more detail? I think our reports are pretty good.
Well, but we have the option of, just kind of checking a short form, and this is a detailed report that would be filed much the same way a state representative has to file it. So.
You're referring to us on, I think you meant the town.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, the individual council members report.
Yeah, I have.
I saw you almost jumped out of your seat. Sorry. Yeah, HB 37 deals with elected officials, financial statements, personal financial statements. So we have to
open up the
long form, I exercise 23,000 options of Acme Widget Company. And that's all I have on that. So, anything?
Okay, I'm next.
Yep.
No, my beach and shores meeting is until Monday at 3 o'clock, so I will attend and let you know what happens there. And then meanwhile, we were forwarded a letter from the president of the Florida Beach and Shores Preservation Society, and part of it says, as to the funding issues for beaches, the governor has announced an additional $156 million for beaches, which includes $106 million to fully fund the anticipated state share of beach recovery, and $50 million for the regularly scheduled beach programs. If approved, the total funding would increase to $206 million. So I'll follow up on that. I don't know, how they're going to share it. They haven't shared much before, but it's a little bit more money for the state, and we'll see what happens.
I don't think we're eligible for any of that. That's my concern, because it's only for critically eroded sectors. I hope I'm wrong on that, but.
Well, yeah, we'll do our best.
Sure.
I will once again address the critically eroded.
Well, at minimum, if we're not eligible for it because we're not critically eroded, it's another reason why we should be designated as critically eroded and say, we're paying taxes too here. Where's our benefit from this? But thank you for your report.
That's all I have.
Next up is the call to the audience. Are there comments from the audience? Yes, sir. And
I have a comment.
as you come up, please step up and state your name and your address.
I'm Matthew Hutmaker, 560 Sable Oak Lane. I'm a runner and walker, and I go up and down A1A, the sidewalk, frequently, every day. And many times I see there are stop signs for the cars coming out onto A1A. The problem is, assuming you're a driver, and I know a lot of you live in Johns Island, and I live in Bermuda Shores, at Bermuda Bay. when you come to the stop sign, you're going to look to, and you're making a right turn, you're going to look to the left because that's where the cars are coming from. Well, those of us that are on the sidewalk, and I know Mr. Alwater's a bicycler, I've heard that before, bicycles and walkers and runners, we're on the sidewalk, and some of us are coming north just when you're ready to come out to make a right-hand turn. And so the stop signs are frequently not being observed in that particular case where people are turning right. That's when it happens. It's worse in a gated community because the driver already stopped pretty much, usually, to get the gate open. So that's depending how far back, 50 feet, 100 feet, whatever. So they feel like they've already stopped, but they couldn't see anything there. And so they've got to get up. And there's shrubbery and bushes and things like that, and trees, that you can't always see real well. Now, I've spoken to the head of my HOA. We've put words out on emails. I've also spoken to the head of the HOA at Johns Island. He said he'd put some word out. It hasn't had any effect. The drivers are still the same. I have seen 3 cases, one of which I was involved in myself, one of which was a bicycler, where cars slammed their brakes on. Nothing happened, but the best time to prevent an accident is before it happens. We've just heard about the fatality here, and we've had others that did terrible things. Not as many as a big city, but still terrible. And I don't know what can be done, but it is a problem. In fact, I was walking this morning the meeting's been 2 hours, so it was probably 3 hours ago. And as I came past the south entrance from the riverside of Johns Island, a car came out, turned, not fast, but there were no brake lights. It never stopped. So it was cruising at 5 miles an hour, making the right turn, going south. It was safe because there was nobody coming down from the north. So I don't know what can be done. It is a problem. I'm mentioning it now before another pedestrian doesn't get run down, but there you have it.
Thank you for your comments. We have Chief Rosell
Thank you.
and Deputy Chief here as well. So, Chief, you want to speak to that, or do you want to?
Sure, if you don't mind, sir. I've spoken to this gentleman a couple of times about the incident. In fact, it was his suggestion probably 4 or 5 years ago that we had little cards printed out, and I stationed officers. What did we put up, about 400 or 500 of them? We printed them out and handed them to residents, just letting them know about the dangers of coming out without stopping. We held off on doing it because of COVID for a couple of years because we didn't want the hand-to-hand interaction. But we can certainly print some more out and start handing them out again. It's not a problem. We have the blank on our computer. We can print them out, laminate them, and get them out there.
Yeah, and I think we can let homeowners associations know too. They have the power of their email blasts that they can, potentially remind people. I don't know how to say this terribly delicately, so I'm just going to say it. I noticed that at this time of year with license plates that are not from Florida, they're from states where stop signs are deemed suggestions or optional. So, I think that may be a part of the problem at this time of year, but enhanced enforcement also helps. So, I know your patrol guys are very diligent, and if word gets out, watch out. You're not gonna get away with a rolling stop. That's helpful too, I think. So,
okay.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, sir. We'll get on it.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir. You had a comment?
I'll be brief. I've got 3 issues that I wanted to address. First, I already spoke to the chief about how well his shark policy works. He's implementing it exactly to the letter of the law, and it's working. And I love your idea of the T down there and stopping, unloading down at the beach. That's going to help the shark fishing here in our location as well. I also came in to talk about the sand restoration, and it's moving along really well, actually at a fever pace, but it's a little dangerous down there. They don't have a flagger on the beach, and that heavy equipment is shooting right by the end of my stairs, and they come up onto the street here and back into oncoming traffic and do a turnaround without spotters, and it's a little bit precarious, as well as it appears to me that number 1,000 at the end of Sunrise Terrace is importing too much sand, and they're overbuilding the pad far more than what was existing when I purchased my property in 2015. I also think that that's going to wash away and add to the sand that we don't have to purchase, so that may be a benefit. And the last issue was the building department and your executive staff, how truly outstanding they are. I've been pulling permits for 40 years. I've pulled hundreds of them. I've never had the support that I had from Jim and from the gentleman at the county that gave me my emergency permit, and moving through the building department and getting my permits and expediting my construction. And I've got a staircase with a lot of integrity that tucked back as it was before. I don't think we're going to see it ever get washed away when the flimsy old one lasted almost 40 years. I really like the one that you guys are building down or have built down there. Those piers are deep, and with the backfill that you've done, they're even deeper. And I think that thing's going to give us some great life. And I just wanted to say thank you again.
Thank you. I know you gave your name and address.
I'm
before.
Dave Christakis,
Thank you. Just for
966
the record,
South.
so she can-
My company.
And I didn't say that just because you were
966
complimentary in your remarks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? There being none, we will adjourn the meeting. Okay. Adjourn.
All right.